governor leaves office, either through death, resignation, or impeachment, the deputy takes over automatically. But there are loopholes in as far as probably who will be his deputy going forward.
That's the thing.
Yes, there are issues like that. But on this matter of forcing a deputy governor to resign, don't you think that probably there's need for more legislation to ensure that no one is pushed to resign? Of course, there are forces in any county, and it's only that Nyeri coincidentally has had to go through such a kind of transition in less than a year twice. But this is something that could happen in any of the other 46 counties. Governors have already come out and raised the concern. They actually raised this concern on the very first day following the death of Wahome Gakuru. And when they met at a hotel in Nairobi, they said it is actually insensitive and wrong for people to actually start talking about swearing in someone else, yet it's only hours after the governor died. Don't you think that some of these issues being raised need extra legislation, Collins?
Yes, I'll agree with you. And these are interesting times, and I think if there's a time our 2010 constitution is being put to test is in these kind of times. I think at the time of drafting, Kenyans were really positive and optimistic, and Kenyans really wanted a new constitution. But in terms of the tenability of the constitution, in terms of foreseeing some of these things, I mean, there are so many ways in which a governor can lose a seat, death being one of them, or even losing capacity in terms of even losing the soundness of the mind. And these are some of the things maybe they were legislated upon in the constitution, maybe up to the first handing. If you look at constitutions like the United States Constitution, they speculate up to the 6th and 7th person in terms of passing of the office. But be that as it may, politically speaking, I think this is a question that should be questioned now in terms of during when the voters are voting. I think Kenyans now should open their eyes when they are exercising their right to vote in terms of even looking at who the deputy is in terms of his capacity to push the agenda. I've spoken to a few friends who are from Nyeri, and they say the late Dr. Gakuru was a very ambitious man and really had very nice plans for the county. But some of them are in doubt if his deputy is really able to, carry on the job.
Yeah, that's a picture that replicates across the country. Most candidates for governor tended to pick and sorry to use this word, a bit lackluster running mates. Probably it is perceived, I'm not saying they're lackluster, perceived and not politically, so that they're not in competition, because you've seen the kind of relationship the governors and their deputies have had over the last 5 years or so. Don't you think this is the same problem that even now, if Mutahi Kahiga is sworn in and is asked to pick a deputy governor, if at all he's allowed to, that he'll go for someone who will not be in direct competition for him, or with him rather?
Yeah, that's a case, and the case of Nyeri needs to be viewed in a number of perspectives. First, the people or the residents of Nyeri County have rightfully they're entitled to feel so much disillusioned because of the loss of a governor who they believed would take them to to far places, and for some reasons the governor is no more. And in our setup, in our African setup, death is a phenomenon, and we don't like to talk about it. We don't even like to imagine about it. And that's why there has been the talk that we should not debate about the swearing in of the deputy governor to take over until we have completed the funeral process. But again, we need to rise above that notion that we cannot talk about death, because once it occurs, then there's nothing else but we have to move on. So it is necessary that Nyeri County gets somebody substantive to hold the office of the governor. And you'll discover there's a big lacuna in the constitution, because unlike for the vacancy in the office of the deputy president, where there is a provision of what should happen if there is no deputy president, there is a lacuna in the constitution in the sense that it doesn't provide for what should happen in the event there is no deputy governor. So in this case, once the deputy governor has been sworn in to fill the slot for the governor, then he will have to do without a deputy governor, unless we amend the constitution. And this is possible through the National Assembly and the Senate by a 2/3 majority, because it's not...
it's amending the constitution.
Yeah, it has to be amended,
yes.
Because right now it is not provided for. And then no one can prevent or compel the deputy governor not to take up the office of the governor, because constitutionally they...
But he could decide. If
unless
on his own volition, pressure, yes.
On his own volition, he decides that I'm stepping aside, I will not be taking up the position of the governor.
The theory being quoted here by the Daily Nation, the fact that some people could be trying to force him or to put pressure on him to step down. It is a theory, but it is in our dailies. This is what people are reading today. What do you say to such a theory? It is possible. It could happen.
Yes, but it is possible, but very unlikely, because I don't see how the deputy governor would just because of some pressure being exerted by people in some places step aside for unknown reasons and without any legal basis. So this could be futile. Those attempts to kick the deputy governor aside may not see the light of day. Because
Mary, conspiracy theorists could come up with anything, but
yes,
it is possible. We've seen such things in movies. Yes, and
well, this is real life,
yes.
And at the end of the day, I'd like to point out that a lot of the governors who were running ensured that they got deputies who were more or less technocrats. We see that in Nairobi with Polycarp Igathe. We see that in Kiambu as well. So I believe that the people of Nyeri should give the deputy a chance, regardless of the push from behind the scenes. And to be very honest, most likely the push from behind the scenes are interested parties, those who did not make it and those who now are seeing an opportunity to make it. And like Mr. Kamodo has pointed out, in African tradition, this is very callous given the manner in which the governor passed. So if I were Kahiga, I would stand my ground. He has every right to be there, but we need... Exactly. But we do need to address the issue of there being now a deputy. Yes.
Yes. Plus, there's also an opportunity for probably more legislation on this matter. How long does it take before a deputy governor is sworn in case of death, probably in case of impeachment or resignation of, or maybe incapacitation, as you mentioned? Quite a number of loopholes here, not necessarily loopholes, but opportunities for more legislations, Colin.
Yes, and these are things that the 12th Parliament should, be on its feet and be ready to, give us amicable solutions. I mean, for how long will we be having such kind of quagmire and dilemmas? But just a bit on the conspiracy theories. I mean, history also repeats itself. I'm of the school of thought that anything is possible. Especially politically speaking. I know Jubilee has pronounced itself as a party that does not influence such kind of processes. But just going back into history, the way our able president got into the political limelight. We remember one of the nominated MPs, I think it was Arab Makto, yes, Makto had to resign, and that's how the president got to be a member of parliament. So
it does happen.
Yes, it does happen in politics. It does happen, and this is, I'm sure, is a serious pressure because from the ground, even some residents of Nyeri really are questioning his capability in terms of performing the duties of a governor. So this is a genuine concern.
Yes,
yes.
General, it should be blamed on the electorate as well. You cannot start questioning the ability of the deputy governor, yet you voted in that pair. It should be incumbent upon the electorate to actually judge and say, fine, you are a strong governor, candidate for governor. How is your deputy or your running mate is? What is their capability? Because they're a heartbeat away from taking over that position. The electorate cannot play victim in this, can they?
Yeah, but I understand their predicament. because sometimes the electorate are so much in love with the governor that they have no opportunity to think who are his companions. And in most cases, if you ask most of the people who their deputy governor is, even as you walk around the street, you find very few people have an idea of who the deputy governor is. They just voted the deputy governor who hung on the tails of the coat of the governor. And this is where now the dilemma arises, when their preferred candidate, who literally they choose, now is no more. And they have to entrust their leadership to a person who ideally is a stranger. So it is that reality that now dawning to the electorate in Nyeri. But I don't think there is much they can do. They will have, just as they fell in love with the Dr. Gakuru, and may God rest his soul, they need to embrace
Mutahi
Kahiga,
yes,
so that they can be able to move ahead. In terms of the conspiracy theory, whereby he's being asked to step aside, it works well in a conspiracy setup where the stakes are high. Like now, the trade-off for Mutahi has to be very high, because he has the governor's position. So if you are telling him to step aside, then you must be promising him the presidency. Otherwise, I don't see how.
Well, in a matter of hours, Mutahi Kahiga will be taking oath of office to take over from his boss, the late Dr. Wahome Gakuru, as governor of Nyeri County. Theories, the dailies are awash with conspiracy theories about what's going on politically in Nyeri. But we just have to wait and see what happens later this afternoon when that ceremony takes place. The other headline, and this is the last one as we wrap up our news review this morning, has to do with the pronouncements by NASA leaders yesterday during a rally in Nairobi. We have a headline on page 8 of the Daily Nation: Raila to get a grand reception upon return. That's just a description there. But on page 10 of the Standard, they say it quite directly. And this is a big headline on page 10 of the Standard: NASA leaders vow to swear in Raila as president this week. That's quoting former Senator for Kakamega County, Boni Khalwale, saying a judge will be present during the ceremony. We do have lawyers here, but some of these pronouncements coming at a time when there's already a process before the Supreme Court. The Constitution is very clear who can swear in a president.
Yes.
It's either the Chief Justice or his deputy in the absence of the Chief Justice. But such a comment cannot go unchecked, even politically.
These are very dangerous comments, because remember, he has a large following, and that large following will take such a comment very, very seriously. Now, we do not want this country to slide into disarray or to become balkanized. We want a country that will be able to be governed, and this kind of talk will now create that scenario where that will not be possible. You have talk of secession already, and very loudly so. You have talk of individuals, like I think the cover of the newspapers are talking about what's happening in Laikipia. These are very, very dangerous comments, and especially with what is going on in the court, I feel that the Honorable Raila and his coalition should have waited for the outcome. Yes.
Collins, what do you say to such a comment that a judge would be present for that particular ceremony? You are an officer of the court.
Yes. I mean, some of these statements, made in political rallies, you really cannot come to account to it because the next day the politician will say they did not utter such kind of words. But in essence, the only way to get to power in Kenya is through an election. And I mean, from the outcome of the previous election, which Honorable Dinga was not a candidate, there is no way he can claim to be sworn in separately. But looking into other factors being considered, there are those Kenyans who also did not vote and are still waiting for fresh elections in 90 days. And there are those who are saying we are already done and dusted. So these are some of the things that we may only see in the coming future.
Yes, of course, NASA may decide to go ahead and actually carry out that ceremony with whoever, if at all they get a judge to do that. Of what consequence would that have And going forward, what kind? Because yes, it may look very nice in a rally when they do that, but what consequence could such a move have?
Of course, under Article 2 of the Constitution, though you may exercise sovereign power through the masses, it is clear that that power must be exercised in accordance with the Constitution. So I do not think that these remarks that were made in a political rally should be given too much weight. I think it's these are light moments in politics. It's meant to it's a joke, because when you hear somebody saying that they will swear a president parallel to the Constitution and they'll get a judge, then it could be they'll get a judge, but not a judge within the mainstream governance system as we know it, because we have judge. Anybody can claim to be a judge. The court Judge Muitus. So we may not want to say that this is seriously what they are doing to upset the mainstream governance structure. But at the same time, I think NASA should also be given the latitude to enjoy some of the rights conferred within the Constitution, and including the right of the freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of association. They can associate, they can come together, they can, yeah, it should be allowed. And I think as Kenyans, we should not judge NASA too harshly when they make such statements, and then we should also view them in certain contexts, because they have made some statements of a similar nature previously, and they did not push them to cause.
So you do not necessarily expect them to go on with such a thing. They said it just to charge the crowd, and they will not necessarily push through with such a thing.
In my estimation, because I think they are law-abiding. They have said they will follow the constitutional the constitutionally provided mechanism for pushing the agenda. They have said they will do the referendum. So I just believe honestly that this was the right moment.
Even if they don't go ahead and swear in Raila Odinga as president, as has been indicated by some of them during that rally, at least there will be a grand reception, and this is what they've declared, once NASA leader Raila Odinga returns from the US this Thursday. And they say they will walk to the airport and walk back to Uhuru Park for that particular event. Only 4 cars will be on the convoy. This is according to Johnson Muthama. Those cars will be carrying Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, and Moses Wetangula. My panelists, we've come to the end. I'll give you each 30 seconds for your final remarks. Mary Mwangi.
My final remarks are, I'm waiting to see what happens with the IED case. That, I think, is the most exciting case, because Raila did pull out of the election, and we want to understand what those implications are legally. Yes.
Thank you, Mary. Collins?
Yes, even in the same rally, they talked of Thursday being a public holiday. I don't know how far also that one will go. But finally, I may just say, just share almost the same sentiments. This is going to be an interesting week in terms of the Supreme Court petition. It might not have the same tension and threshold that the previous ones had, but I think Kenyans should also have their eyes on the case to maybe see the merits and the demerits of the same. Okay.
Finally, Bonenjenga.
Yes, I would say that as Kenyans, we should always stay united irrespective of our diverse opinions and views, because at the end of the day, we are inextricably tied together as members of one nation. So we have to learn to accommodate each other irrespective of our views, and we should also give an opportunity to the institutions that we have in our constitution to carry out their mandate. Sometimes they may give favorable verdicts, sometimes they may not be favorable. So naturally, it's part of life. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You just accept the verdict and move on.
Okay, accept and move on. Jenga Kamodho, lawyer, Collins Mango, also a lawyer, and Mary Mwangi, political analyst, making up our panel, news review panel this Monday. Thank you so much, lady and gentlemen, for that. Remember, Power Breakfast still continues. That's a hashtag to use up until 9 a.m. For lovers of country music, do not despair. Carlos Kiva is indeed in the house. He'll be belting out some nice, lovely tunes to spice up your Monday morning. Also, do remember, it is Inspiration Monday. Dr. Wale will be in the house discussing some nice things to hear as well. My name is Fred Indemuling, saying good morning.